The little boy couldn't have been more than 9 years old. He was standing outside a Memphis diner in the summer heat, holding a crumpled piece of paper in one hand and wiping tears with the other. His clothes were worn but clean, clearly pressed by someone who cared. Elvis was walking out of that diner when he almost bumped into the child. Something made him stop. Maybe it was the way the boy was trying so hard not to cry. Maybe it was how he kept looking down the street, waiting for someone who wasn't coming. Elvis knelt down, put a hand on the boy's shoulder, and asked a simple question. "Hey there, little man, is your mama okay?" The answer that came out of that child's mouth made Elvis Presley, a man who had seen everything fame and fortune could offer, go completely silent. What happened next would change both of their lives forever, and it would reveal a side of the king that most people never knew existed. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. We share incredible true stories about moments that remind us what really matters. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story. Let me take you back to that summer day in 1969. Memphis in the summer of 1969 was hot. Not just warm, that thick, southern heat that sits on your skin and doesn't let go. The kind of heat that makes you move slower, talk softer, and seek shade wherever you can find it. Elvis was in a rare mood that day. He just finished a recording session that had gone better than expected. For the first time in a while, he felt like himself again, like the music was flowing naturally, like he was connecting with something real. He decided to stop at a local diner he'd loved since before he was famous, just a simple place with good coffee and better pie. His security detail wasn't thrilled about it. By 1969, Elvis couldn't go anywhere without causing a scene, but he insisted. Sometimes he just needed to feel normal, even for a few minutes. He went in through the back, had his coffee, ate a slice of coconut cream pie, and chatted with the waitress who'd been working there for 20 years. She remembered him from when he was nobody, and she still treated him the same way. Elvis loved that. When he walked out the front door, ready to slip into his car and head back to Graceland, that's when he saw the boy. His name was Marcus Williams. He was 9 years old, small for his age, with big brown eyes that looked like they'd seen too much already. He was standing on the sidewalk just outside the diner, clutching a piece of paper like it was the most important thing in the world. Marcus wasn't crying exactly, but he was close. That thing kids do when they're trying so hard to be brave, but their chin keeps trembling and their breath comes in little hitches. Elvis noticed him immediately. There was something about children in distress that always got to him. Maybe it was because he remembered being a poor kid himself, knowing what it felt like to need help and not know where to find it. Most people were walking right past Marcus. A few glanced at him, maybe felt a twinge of sympathy, but kept moving. It was hot. They had places to be. Someone else would help. But Elvis stopped. He walked over to the boy, knelt down on one knee, right there on that hot Memphis sidewalk, and put a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Hey there, little man," Elvis said, his voice soft. "You look like you're having a rough day. Is your mama okay?" Marcus looked up at this stranger. He didn't recognize Elvis, or if he did, it didn't register. He was too worried, too scared, too focused on the problem in front of him. "No, sir," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's not okay, and I don't know how to help her." Elvis sat down right there on the curb next to Marcus. His expensive clothes, the hot concrete, none of it mattered. He wanted to be at eye level with this child. "Tell me what's going on," Elvis said. "Maybe I can help." Marcus looked at the crumpled paper in his hand, then back at Elvis. "My mama's in the hospital," he said. "She's been there for 3 days. They did an operation on her stomach because something was wrong inside. The doctors say she's gonna be okay, but she has to stay there for a while longer." "I'm sorry to hear that," Elvis said gently. "That must be real scary for you." Marcus nodded, his chin trembling again. But that's not the worst part, the boy continued. My grandma was supposed to pick me up from my auntie's house and take me to see Mama today. It's visiting hours from 2 to 4, and Grandma said she'd be here at 1:30. Elvis glanced at his watch. It was almost 2:15. She didn't come? Elvis asked. Marcus shook his head. I waited and waited. Then I walked here because there's a payphone by the diner. I tried to call my auntie's house, but nobody answered. I tried to call the hospital, but I don't have enough change to make another call. He held up the crumpled paper. This is the room number where Mama is, 412. I know exactly where she is, but I can't get there. It's too far to walk, and I don't have money for a bus. Marcus's voice cracked. I promised her I'd come today. I promised. And now she's gonna think I forgot about her. She's gonna be in that room all alone, looking at the door, waiting for me, and I'm not gonna be there. The tears finally came. Marcus couldn't hold them back anymore. She just had surgery, mister. She's scared and she's hurting, and I promised I'd be there. I promised. Elvis didn't say anything for a long moment. He just sat there, looking at this 9-year-old boy who was carrying a weight no child should have to carry. Something shifted in Elvis's face. People who knew him well would have recognized it. That look he got when something touched him deeply, when the walls came down and you saw the real man underneath the fame. What's your name, son? Marcus Williams. Well, Marcus, I'm Elvis, and I want you to listen to me real careful. Marcus wiped his eyes and looked up. You're gonna see your mama today, Elvis said firmly. I promise you that, and she's not gonna think you forgot about her. You know why? Marcus shook his head. Because we're gonna get you to that hospital right now, and you're gonna walk into room 412, and when your mama sees your face, she's gonna feel better than any medicine could make her feel. You understand me? Marcus's eyes went wide. You do that, but you don't even know me. Elvis smiled, and it was one of those genuine smiles that people who met him always remembered. I know enough, Elvis said. I know you love your mama. I know you were willing to walk in this heat to try to find a way to get to her. I know you kept your promise even when everything went wrong. That tells me everything I need to know about you, Marcus Williams. Elvis stood up and offered his hand to the boy. Now come on, my car's right around back. Let's go see your mama. Marcus had never been in a car like Elvis's Cadillac. The leather seats were cool despite the heat outside, and it smelled like something expensive he couldn't identify. The car was so quiet and smooth, it was like floating. But Marcus was barely paying attention to any of that. His eyes were fixed on the road ahead, watching the streets go by, knowing each block was bringing him closer to his mother. Elvis drove himself that day, something he didn't always do. His security was following in another car, probably confused and worried, but Elvis didn't care. Some moments needed to be simple. Tell me about your mama, Elvis said as he drove. Marcus lit up a little. She's the best mama in the whole world. She works at a laundry during the day, and sometimes she cleans offices at night when we need extra money. She always makes sure I do my homework before anything else, and she sings to me sometimes when I can't sleep. What does she sing? Church songs mostly, hymns, but sometimes she sings other stuff too. She really likes your songs, actually. Elvis glanced over at Marcus. She does. Yes, sir. She plays your records when she's cleaning the house. She says your voice reminds her of church, but with more. I don't remember the word she used. Feeling, Elvis offered. Yeah, that's it, more feeling. Elvis smiled, but there was something wistful in it. Your mama sounds like a smart woman. She is, Marcus said proudly. She's the smartest person I know. That's why I know she's gonna be okay. She's too smart and too strong to let anything beat her. They pulled up to the hospital at 2:45. Elvis parked the car and looked at Marcus. You ready? Marcus nodded, but he looked nervous again. What if visiting hours are almost over? What if they don't let me in? "Let me worry about that," Elvis said. "You just focus on seeing your mama." They walked into the hospital together. Elvis was wearing sunglasses, but it took about 15 seconds for someone to recognize him. A nurse dropped her clipboard. A doctor did a double take. A patient in a wheelchair pointed and whispered urgently to her companion. Elvis ignored all of it. He walked straight to the front desk with Marcus at his side. "This young man needs to visit his mother in room 412, Elvis said politely. "Her name is Williams." The nurse behind the desk looked from Elvis to Marcus and back to Elvis, clearly trying to process what she was seeing. "Sir, visiting hours end at 4, but—" "Perfect," Elvis said. "That gives him plenty of time. Which way to room 412? The nurse pointed down a hallway, still seemingly unable to form complete sentences. "Thank you kindly," Elvis said. He put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Let's go." As they walked down the hallway, people stared. Nurses came out of rooms. Patients who were able to walk came to their doorways. Word was spreading through the hospital like wildfire. Elvis Presley was here. But Elvis kept his focus on Marcus, guiding him through the maze of hallways until they found room 412. Elvis stopped outside the door. "This is where I let you go ahead," he said to Marcus. "This moment is for you and your mama. Go on in." Marcus looked at the closed door, then back at Elvis. "Thank you," he said, his voice small but sincere. "Thank you for bringing me here." "You're welcome, Marcus. Now go see your mama." Marcus pushed open the door. The room was small, with soft light coming through the window blinds. Medical equipment beeped quietly, and there in the bed was his mother. Dorothy Williams was 34 years old, tired, recovering from surgery, worried about her son, worried about her mother who should have picked him up, worried about everything the way mothers worry when they're lying in hospital beds far from home. When the door opened, she turned her head, hopping. And there was Marcus. "Baby," she cried out, trying to sit up before wincing in pain. "Marcus, oh my baby, you came." Marcus ran to her bedside and threw himself against her as gently as a 9-year-old could manage. "I promised, Mama. I said I'd come and I came." "I know, baby, I know." Dorothy was crying, holding her son, stroking his hair. "I was so worried when your grandma called and said her car broke down. I didn't know how you'd get here. I was praying and praying." "God sent somebody, Mama," Marcus said. "Just like you always said he would. When we need help, God sends somebody." Dorothy looked at her son's face, so earnest and certain. "Who brought you here, baby?" Before Marcus could answer, there was a soft knock at the door. Elvis stepped into the doorway, hat in hand, looking almost shy. "Afternoon, ma'am," he said quietly. "I hope you don't mind, I gave your son a ride." Dorothy Williams looked at Elvis Presley standing in her hospital room doorway, and for a moment she couldn't speak. This had to be a dream. The medication, the surgery, something was making her see things. But Marcus was beaming. "That's my friend Elvis, Mama. He found me outside the diner and drove me here so I could see you." Dorothy's hand went to her mouth. Tears were streaming down her face. "Mr. Presley," she finally managed, I don't know what to say." Elvis stepped into the room, still holding his hat. "There's nothing to say, Mrs. Williams. Your boy was trying to keep a promise to his mama. I just helped him get here." "But why?" Dorothy asked. "You don't know us. Why would you do this?" Elvis was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, more vulnerable. "Because I had a mama too," he said. "And I know what it meant to her when I kept my promises. And I know what it would have meant to me if someone had helped me get to her when I needed to." Elvis's mother, Gladys, had passed away in 1958. The grief of losing her had never fully left him. Everyone who knew Elvis knew that his mother was the most important person in his life, and her death had left a hole that nothing else could fill. "Your son loves you very much, Mrs. Williams," Elvis continued. He was willing to walk across Memphis in this heat to get to you. All I did was give him a ride. He did the hard part." Elvis didn't stay long. He knew this time was for mother and son, not for celebrity visits. But before he left, he did a few things that Marcus and Dorothy would never forget. First, he went to find Marcus's grandmother, Edith. She was stranded across town with a broken-down car, frantic with worry about her grandson. Elvis made some calls, had someone pick her up and bring her to the hospital, and arranged for her car to be towed and repaired, all on his dime. Second, he talked to the hospital administrator. Whatever the family owed, whatever insurance didn't cover, Elvis paid it. He made the administrator promise not to tell the Williams family who had covered the bill. It was just supposed to disappear. Third, he had someone deliver flowers to Dorothy's room, nothing extravagant, just fresh flowers to brighten up the sterile hospital room. The card simply said, "Get well soon. Your son is something special. A friend." And finally, before he left the hospital, he went back to room 412 one more time. Dorothy was resting, Marcus sitting beside her holding her hand. When Elvis appeared in the doorway, Marcus got up and walked over. "Mr. Elvis." "Yeah, buddy. Thank you for everything. I won't ever forget this." Elvis knelt down so he was at eye level with Marcus, just like he had on that hot sidewalk outside the diner. "Can I tell you something, Marcus? Something important?" Marcus nodded. "What you did today, trying to find a way to get to your mama even when everything went wrong, that's not something everybody does. A lot of people would have given up. A lot of people would have gone back inside where it was cool and figured they'd try again tomorrow. But you didn't. You kept trying. You kept your promise." Elvis put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "That's called character, son, and it's the most important thing a person can have. You hold on to that. No matter what happens in your life, no matter how hard things get, you hold on to that character. It'll carry you through." Marcus hugged Elvis. Right there in that hospital room, this 9-year-old boy threw his arms around the king of rock and roll and held on tight. Elvis hugged him back. "You take care of your mama," Elvis said, "and you let her take care of you too. That's what family does." Dorothy Williams recovered fully from her surgery. She went back to work at the laundry, back to her nighttime cleaning jobs, back to singing hymns and Elvis songs while she cleaned the house. But something had changed. Word got around the neighborhood about what had happened, about how Elvis Presley had found Marcus on a street corner and driven him to see his sick mama in the hospital, about how someone, no one could prove who, had paid off the hospital bills, about how a grandmother's car got magically fixed. People started paying more attention to the Williams family, not in an intrusive way, but in a supportive one. Neighbors offered to help with groceries. The church took up a collection. Dorothy's boss at the laundry gave her a raise she probably would have had to wait years for otherwise. It was like Elvis's act of kindness had created ripples. One good deed leading to another, spreading outward in ways he would never know about. Marcus kept his promise to his mother for the rest of her life. Every hospital visit, every doctor's appointment, every time she needed him, he was there. When Dorothy was in her final years, slowed by age and illness, Marcus was the one who cared for her. He never forgot that lesson from the sidewalk outside the diner. You keep your promises, especially to the people you love. And Marcus never forgot Elvis. He grew up, got married, had children of his own. And he told them the story of that summer day in 1969 when the king of rock and roll found a scared little boy and chose to help. "You never know who's watching," Marcus would tell his kids. "You never know whose life you can change just by paying attention, just by stopping instead of walking past. Elvis didn't have to help me. He was famous, he was busy, he had places to be. But he saw a kid who needed help and he stopped." This story might seem like a small thing. One boy, one hospital visit, one kind act. In the grand scope of Elvis's life and career, it barely registers. He sold hundreds of millions of records. He changed music forever. He became one of the most famous people who ever lived. But here's what I think matters about this story. Elvis Presley had everything: fame, fortune, adoration from millions of fans worldwide. He could have walked past that boy on the sidewalk. He could have let his security handle it. He could have done 100 different things that would have been easier, less complicated, less personal. Instead, he knelt down. He asked a simple question. He listened to the answer. And then he did something about it. That's not nothing. In fact, I'd argue that's everything. We live in a world where it's easy to look away, where we convince ourselves that someone else will handle it, that it's not our problem, that we're too busy or too important or too something to stop and help. But what if we all knelt down? What if we all asked, "Is your mama okay?" What if we all listened to the answer and did something about it? I've thought a lot about why this story resonates so deeply, and I think it comes down to a few things. First, Elvis saw Marcus as a person, not a problem. He didn't see a poor kid or a distraction or someone else's responsibility. He saw a child who loved his mother and needed help. That simple act of truly seeing another human being, that's rarer than it should be. Second, Elvis didn't just throw money at the problem and walk away. He got involved. He drove Marcus to the hospital himself. He walked him inside. He made sure the boy actually got to see his mama. It wasn't about writing a check and feeling good about himself. It was about making sure the problem got solved. Third, Elvis understood what Marcus was really asking for. The boy didn't just need a ride to the hospital. He needed someone to tell him that his love for his mother mattered, that his efforts to keep his promise weren't foolish, that there was still goodness in the world when everything seemed to be falling apart. Elvis gave him all of that. And finally, Elvis did it quietly. He didn't call the press. He didn't make it about himself. He just helped and then he left. The fact that we know this story at all is only because Dorothy and Marcus chose to share it years later. That's real kindness, not the kind you do for likes and shares, not the kind you do so people will think better of you, the kind you do because someone needs help and you can provide it. Elvis Presley died in 1977. He was only 42 years old. In the decades since, his music has continued to inspire, his legacy has continued to grow, and millions of people around the world still consider themselves his fans. But for Marcus Williams, Elvis's legacy isn't about music. It isn't about movies or concerts or cultural impact. It's about a summer afternoon when a scared little boy was trying to keep a promise to his sick mother, and a famous man decided to stop and help. Marcus is in his 60s now. His mother passed away peacefully in 2008, with Marcus by her side just like he promised. He still has that piece of paper with room 412 written on it. It's framed in his house, right next to a photo of his mother and a small picture of Elvis that he cut out of a magazine in 1970. When people ask him about that day, Marcus always says the same thing. He didn't have to stop, but he did, and that made all the difference. If this story moved you, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever been helped by a stranger when you really needed it? Or have you been the person who stopped to help when no one else would? Share your story below. These comments are always my favorite part of this channel, the way we can all remind each other that there's still so much kindness in this world. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, someone who might be going through a hard time, someone who might need to be reminded that good people exist, share this video with them. Sometimes a story is exactly what we need. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this community, and remember, you never know whose life you might change just by stopping to ask, "Is your mama okay?" Take care of each other out there. I'll see you in the next one.